Mount Everest have glaciers in it?
It does, yeah. Okay, so again, I've been there, right?
You've been,
To
but
Mount
I
Everest.
heard
Yeah.
people died on Mount Everest.
A lot of people have died on Mount
Did
Everest.
you climb it?
We hiked to the bottom of it. So even that hike to get to it is already really challenging. Then the actual amount of money you have to pay to climb it is insane, and it's incredibly dangerous. So the year that I went to Nepal, there had been a huge avalanche earlier in that year, and unfortunately, some of the Sherpa, who are the people that like live in the mountains there and generally climb those mountains,
Yeah.
a few Sherpas had died in the avalanche, unfortunately, and they canceled the season completely. So no one was allowed to actually climb Mount Everest that year. Someone did climb on the other side, which was illegal, and they were arrested when they came down. But it was like it was a pretty cool climb that this woman did, but it was against the rules. But so when you're walking on the trails to get to Everest, you can actually feel the earth underneath you moving, and you can hear it. And it is glaciers that are scraping on the ground. They're actually moving. They're just moving very, very slowly. But while you're walking, you can hear them, and you can watch like rocks will fall, and yeah, it's pretty wild. So some of the sand and debris is all moving around. It's pretty neat.
It also says here that Gypsies can be really sharp and that they can make really good weapons for if ever you're like camping on a mountain.
Okay.
People have used them to defend themselves against predators.
Choice. I never would have considered that, but it would make total sense. Now the glaciers. Oh, sorry, Imogen.
So is Mount Everest one giant glacier?
No, the mountain itself is not a glacier, but there are glaciers in so Mount Everest is part of a range of mountains. There's like 40 mountains all beside one another. There may even be more. I don't remember how many it is. There's like a whole bunch. But the mountains themselves have been shaped by glaciers being pushed through them and around them. So it's in between. There are glaciers, kind of thing, and a lot of them are actually covered up by the stone from the mountains.
Okay.
So it's not. So Mount Everest itself is a mountain, but in between it and all through the mountain range, there's little glaciers that have been buried by debris from the mountains and things like that.
That's
How-
interesting.
How would glaciers be able to form even if there's no waters?
It is, so what happens is the mountains are so high, so mountains are really, really high, and what happens to the temperature? It gets cold.
It
right?
gets
So
cold.
higher you get, colder it gets. So you do actually get snow forming on the top of the mountains. And then eventually, what happens to that snow? It's a little bit of a melt. So it's gonna melt a little bit, and it's not all gonna go away, but some of it's gonna come down and gravity's gonna pull it into sections. And what happens? You get all this melt year after year. It melts, it freezes, it melts, it freezes, it melts, it freezes, and it starts stacking up on top of itself. And it can be anywhere in the mountain, right? It might not fall all the way to the bottom. Most of it does. Most of it eventually finds its way down to the bottom. But you'll get these huge chunks of ice that just start sliding down the mountains. And if you have a whole bunch of it, it can bring so much snow and stuff with it, and so much debris. Like it's absolutely wild. I've never seen like an avalanche up close. I've unfortunately seen what they do, and it's terrifying. Yeah, like it's just wild. So, you don't think of a glacier as being scary, but like it's pretty wild. Like it does a lot. So the ones in Nepal, they're all buried by rock pretty much now. You don't really see too much of them. They have a place called the Ice Falls, which is in front of Everest, and it's the snow that packs, and if that melts like even just a little bit, the danger is that like a whole section just slides down, and it's terrifying. Like the idea that it's just sitting there and a little bit of melting is gonna send it down on top of people is absolutely crazy. Ahmed, I think you were first.
Hi Moses, do you technically need like water or rain to make a
Yeah, so it has to come from some form of precipitation. So a glacier doesn't just happen without the change in temperature. So you have to have water or snow or something there to start with. So it could fall from the sky and then not melt, or it could be there already and melt a little bit and then get more and melt a little bit and get more. But a glacier like has to start from like some form of water.
so rain?
Just one second.
It starts with
What
what has
rain
the turn.
in can it rain at Mount Everest?
So if it rains at Mount Everest, it's snow. So Mount Everest is so high up that like even the bottom of Mount Everest is so high up that it snows there. It doesn't rain.
It's like-
As you get a little bit lower, it starts to rain. So like, if you hike to Mount Everest, the hike itself, just to get to the bottom of it, is one of the highest places like in the world. And that's what helps Mount Everest be like the tallest mountain in the world, because it's already really high up from where it started. Okay? So it's usually so cold up even at the bottom of it that if they get anything, it's usually snow. I'm sure it could rain like every once in a while, but it's usually snow.
So if I get to the top of the mountain,
It's only snow. They don't get rain up there. Only snow.
don't the snow melt since you're closer to the sun?
Yep, exactly. So if the sun's out, then no matter what, if the sun's out, even though it's cold, you will get some melting. And eventually that melting will move its way down the mountain, and if it collects in a spot, it can start to form glaciers or ice patches. Oh wait, do you remember where it is? Okay. Lloyd,
I have 4 questions.
no, give me one. Give me one question.
Before,
Pick your best one that's related to what we're talking about.
is there skeletons on Mount Everest?
Yes, there are. There's tons of bodies.
Okay.
People die and they do not get brought back down.
Why not?
I'll tell you in 1 second. All right.
Is it snack time?
I don't know.
No.
10:13.
Snack time's in
I mean,
3 minutes.
Okay.
Imogen!
So Lloyd asked a question. You may or may not be interested in this at all. Okay, but every year there are expeditions. There are people that climb Mount Everest. It's a huge moneymaker for the government of Nepal, because people pay big money to do it. There's big crews that do it. Not everybody makes it. Okay, people absolutely die. There's usually at least one death in a season for when you're climbing Everest. Bodies do not get brought back down because it's already super dangerous trying to climb it. People can't bring the body down. So because it's heavy, like a dead body, it's heavy, right? You're already climbing one of the most difficult mountains in the world. Oxygen levels are super low. People usually have to wear gas masks. Very few people climb it without wearing an oxygen tank. It's like scuba diving, but you're climbing up a mountain. So
It's like-
you've already got this gear.
It's like the
can't-
gas mask.
Yeah,
Car.
yeah, absolutely. So you just can't. They just can't do it. You okay, buddy?
Yeah, and and people nowadays who climb Mount Everest, so I feel like in my opinion, I would recommend taking train first.
Yeah, which
So you might have to want to skier, like there's like leopards up there, like you need to know how to like what if you fall? Like you gotta be prepared, you gotta bring like
absolutely. And so a lot of the climbers, they go in groups. And yes, you usually have to do like a practice training thing at base camp. You climb up in levels, so you climb up to a section. You see if your body's okay with it. You come back down. You climb up again. You come back down part way. You do it in stages. It's really crazy. Like you can't
because
just.
since it's so high, a lot of other pressure. It's like
It
the
messes with
higher,
your brain.
yeah, and then it gets colder because it's where the cold comes from. So like the more you go up, the more pressure cold is being put on your brain. Your brain gets.
Yeah, I forget what it's called, but like it can, if you go too fast, like your brain can basically explode. Like it's, the idea is gross. But so even with my wife and I on our trip, we couldn't do the whole thing. We had to go back and forth. Yeah, it's that time.
I just have one.
What is it?
I have no idea.
Wait, I don't. Oh, I will look at it. It boosts you. There's smoothies, but then they have all of these boosters. There's like strawberry sunshine. But you can go super simple like that. You should have Here you go. I don't know that you're gonna. You can move the way.
No, don't look.
What?
I thought I had like a little guy, like the other.
What's the other guy?
Oh, you know what? Yeah, well, I have two dogs. One's not a puppy because he's a year old now.
Oh, okay.
Let me check. Sonic Foam Kids, I know.
No, I tell you where it's in March break.
What?
You just said it.
Sonic Land.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Costa Rica.
What is Sonic Land?
It's where I went to March break, not Sonic.
Air purifier.
Yeah.
I really miss DPA.
EPA.
Oh.
Physical.
Oh yeah, they have wild dogs there. Across the street.
Wild dogs.
Pardon?
Costa Rica?
Wild dogs.
Like, not like they were
What?
paying. They were at the resort, and I saw at least. Well, I saw a couple. Here's one that I ended up.
It looks like really.
Yeah, she does. She does. I went to like a zoo.
You? Never enough.